The castle of Noctira trembled as the relic cracked. The light faded into darkness. The crimson sky outside deepened until it almost turned black. The air filled with a low humming sound that made even the bravest soldiers clutch their chests in fear. King Calith stood frozen, holding his trembling son. Alara lay on the cold marble floor, her skin pale, her breathing weak. The relic beside her was broken, its light bleeding out like silver smoke. Aaron, now hearing for the first time, was terrified. Every sound was too loud. The thunder, the heartbeat, even the rustle of his own breath. He clung to his father, his small body shaking. Calith shouted for help. He ordered the court healer to bring everything, potions, charms, old scrolls, but no magic could stop what had begun. The relic had awoken something older than all of them. A wind rose inside the castle, carrying whispers. Not voices of the living, but of the forgotten. They spoke in echoes, soft and broken. Return the debt. Return the sound. Return what was taken. Alara's eyes fluttered open. She looked up at Calith and whispered weakly, "It has begun again." "What has begun?" Calith demanded. "The curse of the echo," she said softly, her voice fading. "It binds souls who borrow what was never meant to be borrowed." Then her eyes closed. The king lifted her gently and carried her to the high chamber, where the eternal moonlight poured through the roof. The royal healers surrounded her, but Calith stopped them. "Leave," he commanded. "She came to help my son. I will not let your fear destroy her." The healers bowed and left. The room grew quiet except for Aaron's soft breaths and the slow rhythm of Alara's heart. Days passed. Alara slept without waking. The prince stayed beside her, refusing to leave. He would touch her hand, whisper her name softly, and wait for her eyes to open. He had learned her name not through her voice, but through her kindness. King Calith watched from the shadows, guilt and confusion twisting inside him. He had ruled for centuries, but he had never felt this helpless. His son could now hear, yet every joy was poisoned by the fear of losing the one who gave it. The court demanded answers. "She is a witch," they said. "Burn the relic. End the curse before it spreads." Calith silenced them all with a glare, but deep inside he was afraid they were right. One night, the old royal seer appeared before the throne. His eyes were blind, but he saw truths that others could not. "You played with the relic of the ancients, my king," the seer said. "The heart of echoes does not give without taking." The boy's hearing came from her soul. Her life is now tied to his. Calith's heart froze. "You mean if she dies?" The seer nodded slowly. "Then the boy will lose not only his hearing, but his voice, his will, and his light. His silence will become eternal." The king turned away, his jaw tight. "There must be a way to break it." "There is only one way," said the seer. "The one who carries the curse must choose to give up their immortality." The words struck Calith like a blade. He had ruled for over 600 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. His immortality was his throne, his strength, his curse. To give it up would mean to die as a man, not as a king. The seer's final words echoed in his mind. To break the echo, one heart must fall silent forever. In the days that followed, Calith stayed close to Alara's bedside. He watched her struggle to breathe. He watched her little daughter, Aaron, sit beside her mother and hum soft songs. The prince sat near Aaron, learning the rhythm of sound, sometimes humming with her even if his voice trembled. It was a strange sight. The vampire prince and the mortal girl, sitting side by side, bound by a curse neither understood. Alara's spirit grew weaker each day, but her face remained peaceful. It was as if she knew this was always her destiny. Calith could not understand her calmness. One night he sat beside her and spoke softly, though he knew she might not hear. "Why did you come here, Alara? You could have lived quietly far from this cursed land." Her eyes opened slowly. She smiled faintly. "Because silence follows me," she whispered. "And I thought, maybe I could teach someone not to fear it." Calith's heart stirred. No one had ever spoken to him like that, not without fear, not without bowing. He looked at her fragile form and felt a pain he could not name. It was not love, not yet. It was something deeper. The recognition of a soul that refused to kneel even before death. He reached out, touching her hand gently. "You have given my son a gift I could not. Tell me how to save you." Alara shook her head weakly. "You cannot save me without breaking what binds you." Calith frowned. "What binds me?" "Your immortality," she whispered. "You have never let go of anything." Not grief, not guilt, not power. You built your eternity out of fear of loss, but eternity built from fear becomes a prison. Her words cut deep. He had never been spoken to like that. Yet he did not grow angry. He only sat quietly watching her sleep, hearing the soft breaths of his son beside her. But the curse was growing stronger. The heart of echoes had cracked, and its power began to spread across Noctira. The mist thickened. The moon turned darker. The souls of the old vampires began to whisper again, crawling back into the world. They followed the sound of the prince's heart. At night, Aaron heard them, faint voices begging for release. He would wake crying, hearing words no one else could hear. Caliph would rush to his side, holding him close, whispering, "It's all right, my son. You're safe." But even the king could hear faint echoes now calling his name. The past was waking. One night, the voices grew too strong. The castle windows shattered. Shadows took form. Old kings, old queens bound by the ancient echo. Their faces were pale, eyes hollow, filled with sorrow. They spoke together, their voices blending into one terrible song. Return the silence. The sound was stolen. The debt must be paid, Aaron screamed. The sound shattered the air. The voices wailed, swirling around him like a storm. Alara woke suddenly, her eyes glowing faintly with silver light. She rose weakly and stretched her arms toward the boy. "Let it come to me," she whispered. "Let me carry it again." Caliph stopped her. "No, you will die." She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Then let me die free," but the king would not allow it. He stepped forward, his cloak of shadows spreading wide. He faced the storm of echoes and shouted in a voice that shook the world, "Take me instead." The voices froze. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. The shadows turned toward him. The ancient power inside the castle stirred, recognizing the words of a king's oath. Caliph stood tall, his crimson eyes burning with something fierce and pure. He turned to Alara. "You said eternity built from fear is a prison. Then let me break it." He lifted his hand toward the heart of echoes. The broken relic rose from the floor, its pieces glowing faintly. He closed his eyes and whispered, "I give back my eternity. Let silence take me, not her." The relic burst into light. The shadows screamed as the light spread through the hall. Caliph's body glowed, his form dissolving into thousands of black feathers. His crown fell to the floor, and for a moment everything went still. Aaron stopped crying. The voices were gone. The air grew calm again. Alara collapsed beside the boy, tears streaming down her face. She felt the warmth of life returning to her chest. The curse had been lifted, but Caliph was gone. Only one feather remained, black and glimmering in the moonlight. Years passed. The kingdom healed slowly. The mist cleared. The twilight grew softer. Prince Aaron grew older, kind and gentle, ruling beside Alara, who raised him and her daughter together. He could not hear anymore, and the gift had faded when his father vanished, but he was no longer afraid of silence. Sometimes, late at night, Alara would sit by the window, the black feather in her hand. The wind would move gently, carrying a whisper she could almost hear. In silence, "I found my heart," she would smile softly, whispering back, "And I found mine in yours." Final scene. Cliffhanger. On the night of Aaron's coming-of-age ceremony, the sky of Noctira darkened once again. The moon burned red. The wind turned cold. And from the edge of the forest a tall figure appeared, cloaked in shadow, eyes glowing faintly crimson. Alara froze, the feather trembling in her hand. A deep voice spoke from the mist, familiar, ancient, and filled with longing. "Did you think silence could keep me forever?" Her heart skipped a beat. The Vampire King had returned, not as a ruler of the night, but as something reborn between life and death, drawn back by the only echo that never fades, the echo of love. The kingdom of Noctira lived under an eternal twilight sky. The sun never rose fully and the moon never left. Every tower, every stone bridge, every shadow carried a soft red glow from the clouds above. People said the sky looked this way because the first Vampire King once made a promise to the night, a promise that could never be broken. Inside the great black stone castle at the edge of the cliffs, the most awaited child of the era was born, Prince Aaron, the son of Vampire King Caliph. His birth was expected to be a blessing. The entire court gathered to hear the newborn's first cry, for in their world, a vampire child's voice was believed to hold their destiny. But when the moment came, the child was completely silent. No cry, no sound. Not even a small breath that anyone could hear. The healers, the midwives, the royal sages, everyone waited, trembling, afraid to speak. The king stood still, tall as the ancient pillars around him, eyes sharp like red crystal. He waited for his son to make even the faintest sound. It never came. The newborn boy moved, but he made no noise. When the midwife clapped near his ear, he did not react. When a bell was rung, he did not blink. His silence filled the great hall like a cold wind. The court whispered, born without sound. The prince cannot hear. A curse, a sign. King Caliph ordered silence with a single look. But even his powerful presence could not stop the fear spreading through the court like fog. In Noctira, sound was not just sound. It was power, memory, and legacy. Vampires were born with voices strong enough to command storms, to echo through mountains, to calm spirits of the night. But the prince had none of it. He was called the Child of Silence, though never to the king's face. Years passed, and Prince Aaron grew into a gentle child with bright silver eyes and hair soft as moonlight. He did not speak. He did not hear. But he watched everything with a deep, quiet intelligence that made some people uneasy, and others strangely comforted. He learned to read lips. He learned to use his hands to communicate simple things. And although he never heard his father's voice, he always recognized the shape of it when the king spoke. King Caliph was feared by all, cold, distant, carved from ice and shadow. But when he looked at his son, something inside him cracked, just a little. He tried everything to cure him. He called healers from every land. He paid sorcerers mountains of gold. He unlocked old books full of forbidden wisdom. Nothing worked. The boy lived inside a world of quiet, and the king lived inside a world of guilt. Then, one evening in the last stretch of twilight, a stranger arrived at the castle gates, a young woman, a human. Her name was Ilara. She carried a small daughter on her back, a girl with storm-gray eyes and a silver mark on her skin that looked almost like light trapped under the surface. The guards tried to send her away. No mortal woman had entered the vampire capital in years, but Ilara insisted she had been called by a dream of a silent child who needed her. Word reached the king. Caliph, curious yet wary, allowed her to enter the throne hall. She walked to him with calm steps. She did not tremble. She did not kneel. She only bowed respectfully. "What do you seek?" the king asked. Ilara lifted her chin. "Sanctuary for me and my daughter, and permission to see the prince." The entire court gasped. Some laughed quietly. A mortal woman asking to touch royal blood? Impossible. King Caliph studied her carefully. She was simple. Quiet clothes, a soft voice, tired eyes. Yet something about her felt heavier than her small frame, like she carried memories too large for her heart. "What makes you think you can help him?" the king asked. Ilara looked down at her daughter sleeping in her arms. "Because I once knew silence," she whispered, "and I learned how to speak without sound." A single, strange moment passed between them, an understanding without explanation. The king allowed her to meet the prince. Ilara found Aaron sitting near a tall window in his chamber, watching the endless twilight sky. He did not hear her enter. When she approached, he turned his head slowly. Curious. Ilara smiled and raised her hand in a simple greeting, the way one greets a child unsure of new faces. Aaron studied her face, her hands, her gentle movements. Then he offered her a small, shy smile of his own. He pointed to himself. "Aaron." She pointed to herself. "Ilara." She moved slowly, letting him see every motion clearly. Her fingers danced softly in the air. Sign language he recognized only a little. Still, he watched closely, his eyes shining as though seeing something familiar yet forgotten. She spent hours with the boy, not trying to fix him, only trying to understand him. She traced words on his palm. She made simple gestures. She let him guide her, and something changed. Aaron, who often hid behind silence when strangers entered, opened up. He took Ilara's hand and dragged her excitedly around his room, showing her small drawings he had made, sketches of the moon, of birds, of shadows that looked almost alive. Alara praised him with warm smiles and gentle touches on his shoulder. He watched her lips, fascinated by the shapes they made. Outside the chamber, King Calith watched without entering, his expression unreadable. For the first time in years, the prince laughed, silent with no sound, but with joy so pure it filled the whole room like warm light. Alara taught him shapes, symbols, and gestures. She taught him how to express what he could not hear, and Aaron taught her his world of silence, a world full of soft light, slow thoughts, and deep emotions. The king saw his son's eyes shine brighter day by day. He saw the boy follow Alara everywhere, and slowly, reluctantly, he began to trust the mortal healer. But not everyone trusted her. Whispers spread in the castle. Rumors grew sharp. She is a witch. She uses forbidden relics. She wants the throne. She must be lying. And there was something else, something she kept hidden. One night, when the prince slept and the castle halls were empty, Alara pulled something out from beneath her cloak, a small glowing orb. Soft light, ancient rune marks, a relic older than all the vampire kings, the heart of echoes. Alara stared at it with trembling hands. She whispered softly to herself, not knowing that a shadow moved behind the door, King Calith's shadow. He watched silently as she lifted the relic and held it over the sleeping prince's chest. Her voice broke as she whispered, "I hope I still remember how to use this." She placed the glowing orb gently above Aaron's heart. The light spread. The air grew warm. And for a moment the entire world felt still. Aaron gasped. His eyes shot open. He clutched the bed sheets as though the world had suddenly grown 10 times louder. His breath trembled. His hands moved to his ears. A sound escaped him, a small broken sound. Then another. A soft cry he could hear. For the first time in his life he heard. He heard the rustle of curtains. He heard his own heartbeat. He heard the soft breath of his healer. And when King Calith rushed into the room, Aaron heard his father's voice, deep, shocked. Shaking with emotion the king himself did not realize he had. "Aaron," Calith whispered. The boy reached out with trembling hands. He touched his father's face, stunned by the new world around him. The king lifted him into his arms. For the first time, the prince heard the sound of his father's heartbeat. But as Aaron came to life, Alara began to fade. Her knees weakened. Her breath turned shallow. The orb dimmed in her hand. King Calith turned toward her, alarmed. "What have you done?" he demanded. Alara gave a weak smile, her eyes soft. "The relic shares what it restores," she said. "Sound cannot return without taking something in exchange. What did it take from you?" he asked. She looked down as though hiding a truth too heavy to carry. "It takes what I owe," she whispered. "Something I should have given long ago." Before the king could question her further, the orb cracked. A long, sharp line cut across its glowing surface. A tremor passed through the entire castle. Shadows shivered on the walls. The sky outside changed color, deeper, darker, almost bleeding. Aaron looked up as a loud echo rang through his newly awakened ears, a sound that did not belong to their world. Alara collapsed. "Aaron," she cried as she fell, her voice breaking like glass. The little prince reached for her, terrified by the new sound of fear he had never heard before. And in the sky above the castle, something ancient awakened. End of Part 1. Hook. Cliffhanger. The relic is cracked. Alara is collapsing,